and welcome to another episode of Piper's Picks. I'm Sierra.
I'm William.
And we're glad that you're deciding to come on in and hang out and see what we have to say about our book and movie tonight. So, tonight I am going to discuss the book The Midnight Library by Matt Haig.
Awesome. And I am going to discuss the movie Greenland with Gerard Butler, if I can say his name correctly.
One of my favorite actors, by the way. There's not a lot of movies he can't pull off. Like, every role I've seen him in, phenomenal.
You like him, huh?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It could be the accent that helps, though.
doesn't hurt. He's handsome.
No, not the least bit. Just a heads up before we really dig into it is, spoiler alert, there's gonna be spoilers. We do in-depth talk about the book and movies and, themes and how we feel about things. And sometimes, depending on the movies and the books that we pick, it deals with sensitive subjects. Like, tonight, I am going to be discussing a book that talks about suicide.
Oh, wow.
And that is it is a very serious thing to deal with. It's, and so many people suffer silently.
Absolutely.
And so, if you
Mental health is a big deal.
It really is. And in these times with everything going on, everything's just a little bit extra cray-cray. So, I'm just gonna say the suicide prevention hotline number. If you really feel like you need help, don't hesitate to call, please. You can call 1-800-273-8255. And just reach out if you guys need help, because it does get better. I know sometimes things are rough, but it really does get better.
Well, I'll let you show them the book, and then I'll take a good look at the cover here.
All right. So, we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And, I don't know if I'm butchering his last name, so I'm sorry if I am. This book was a very quick read for me. I didn't want to put it down.
Right on. And I'm looking at the cover here, and I see, some animals and some busy people. I see a plane, some mountains. I see a dolphin or some kind of fish, and a chess piece and a car. But they don't give you much to go on the
Not with this one.
On the book, do they?
You are actually missing an important piece here.
The microphone?
The time. That's time.
Oh!
0-100 hours.
Oh wow! Yeah, I did not pick up on the 0-100 hours thing across the entire cover. That's interesting. It's right in front of you.
Yeah.
I completely missed it.
I was confused about it, but we'll get there. Okay,
right
so
on.
your guesses, sir, with what little you were given, do you have any idea?
Well, I know that the book revolves around the afterlife and death. But other than that, I don't know what it's about. Every person that is illustrated on the cover is a female. Is it about a female?
Yes.
All right, so I take it this book is going to be about this female's journey into the afterlife?
It is about a journey, but not quite into the afterlife.
Okay, so I'm wrong. And does she go on a lot of adventures?
Yes. Yes, she does.
All right. Not too bad.
We pick up with the main character, and her name is Nora Seed. And when we pick up with Nora, she's, she suffers from anxiety and depression, really, really bad.
Okay, where does the book exactly pick up?
It picks up with her in her, I'm not sure 100% says an age, but I would guess about mid-30s.
Okay.
Maybe early 30s. But, so we pick up with Nora, and she's not in a good place. I mean, she's kind of a tragic character. She's had some things happen to her. Her dad died young.
Oh.
And then she had all these opportunities, but she happened to just kind of, run away from them. Nora's thing is she's a runner.
I can kind of see that from the book. She's always in motion, on the cover anyway.
Yeah. So there are plenty of opportunities she had that would have been phenomenal, but the pressure got too much and she quit.
Okay.
So when she was a kid, when she was 14, she was the number one 14-year-old swimmer in her area. Like, she was Olympic swimmer status.
Wow.
And the pressure got too much, so she just quit.
She just quit the swimming?
She just couldn't take it and she had to quit.
Okay.
Well, then she was in a band with her brother. And things were going good, and they were finally going to get signed, and then she was having anxiety attacks on stage, so she quit the band.
Oh, okay, so far it sounds like she gets somewhere and then she sabotages herself, sort of?
Yes.
Okay, now, has the afterlife come into this at all yet?
No.
Okay.
Because we're just laying the foundation for who she is
Yep.
why.
Keep going. I was just trying to figure out the structure of the book was all.
It's a slow lead up. I'm sorry.
That's
I
all right.
kind of like to meander when I'm telling stories. It's a habit. But so she's led this life where she's got all these regrets of, oh, I flaked out on this. Oh, I quit this. You know, she gets very, very, very close with her librarian when she's in school, like during this swimming time, because she found a solace in the library. So she got really, really close with this librarian, and actually it was this librarian that had to tell her her dad died. Because her dad died when she was very young. How
did the librarian know her dad died?
Somebody had called her. Like, everybody knew that if she couldn't be reached or she wasn't at, like, a practice or something, she was hanging out at the library.
Okay. That makes sense.
So she kind of had to deal with that. And then fast forward, she's growing through her life, and there are all these things, like the band and, you know, all these things that she wanted to do. Like, her librarian told her that she should be a glaciologist. So
what
go
is a
study
glaciologist?
So go study glaciers, and
okay.
You know, and so she just kind of like waifed on that a little bit, and so instead of going to college for that, she went for literature and philosophy.
Oh, wow.
So she's a philosophy major, which I find ironic with the situation that she's in, because you would think there would be things that she knows from her studies that would have kind of
that she could enact in her own life.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would have thought, but
yeah,
you know, she's alone. When we pick up with her, she's alone, but she explains that she was with a man named Dan, and he asked her to marry him, and she said yes, but then like 2 days before the wedding, she called it off.
She ran again.
She ran.
Okay.
Because she felt like all the things that had happened in her life had put her in a mental place where she felt like she wasn't good enough for him. He deserved better than her, and she didn't know what she was doing in this life, and she didn't want to weigh him down.
So she sabotaged herself.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and they had planned, he wanted to own an inn out in the countryside, because this takes place over in Bedfordshire.
Bedfordshire.
Yeah, so over across the pond.
Okay.
So she goes to London for her schooling, and then she gets called home because her mother is sick and she has to take care of her mom. So she helps take care of her mom and essentially watches her mom die, and she's staled out, and she ends up working at a music store called String Theory.
So she was almost in a successful band. She was almost signed. All these things.
Yes.
And she ends up as a run...
you know what? The one thing I love about this character, she's written very well, is that she is very, very smart, very intelligent. Like, the things she knows, the possibilities that she had at her fingertips, but because of everything that had happened to her and how she was coping with it all, she was, you know, like, you know, just kind of... if that makes sense. And so she gets fired from her job at String Theory.
Okay.
And at this point in the book...
Is she like super low at this point in her life?
And you know, she reaches out for a friend. Like, she was supposed to move to Australia with her best friend. And like a month before the trip, she flaked out and she was like, I can't do it.
Oh.
And so her best friend was super mad at her that she canceled, and
didn't make the trip.
Their friendship, she said, had turned into nothing but a couple birthday wishes and shared texts and gifts here and there. And I know how that goes. You lose touch with friends, and you know, everybody is on their different journey here.
Absolutely.
So, at this point in the book, some of the chapters and then some of the paragraphs start like 12 hours before Nora decided to end her life.
Oh, okay.
So then it's like the countdown to what happens, and you know,
for some reason that just strikes me as sort of like 13 Reasons Why, just a tiny bit.
A little bit. She had ran into somebody that on her way home from getting fired. Mm-hmm. She decided to just randomly go into this one market. Mm-hmm. And she happens to run into somebody who was in the band that she split from. Uh-huh. And, you know, she told them, she was like, hey, get another singer, go on without me, you guys will do great. And well, that was it. It was just dead for them. So he was super salty with her. And then,
feeling like she destroyed the band?
Yeah. And
kinda?
Then, well, she was in the band with her brother. She's got an older brother.
Okay.
And he was super salty about it as well. And while talking to this old friend, trying to skirt around the talking about bands and everything, she finds out that her brother was in town and he didn't even get a hold of her. So her and her brother aren't speaking. Her and her best friend aren't speaking. Both of her parents have passed.
Yeah.
She lost her job. So at this point, all she wants to do is go home and cuddle with her cat, Voltaire.
Oh, does something happen to her cat?
Yes.
Oh!
Yeah. At this point, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
So explain what happened, yeah.
And she talks about running into this doctor who lives in the same area that she does. And, you know, like, he asked her out for coffee. And she just kind of like, oh, no thanks. You know, kind of played dumb and everything.
I wished I would have been wrong on that.
So she went home and she's looking around for Volts. His name is Voltaire. But she says that sounds quite pretentious for him. So she calls him Volts.
Volts.
And she comes home and she's looking for him. She can't find him. And then this guy that's asked her out for coffee knocks on her door. And she doesn't quite know what to expect. She thought maybe it was another coffee invitation. And he's all like, do you have a cat?
Oh.
And he took her to the end of the driveway where, unfortunately, Voltaire had passed.
Oh, man.
And so this guy helped her bury him, and then she went back into her apartment and she decided to try and overdose on pills.
Wow.
So she swallows a handful of pills, knocks it back with a couple glasses of wine, and lays down in bed. And then it kind of like, because, you know, like if you read and you see it in your head like a movie, it would be like the fade to black and then fade to white and bring the next part forward.
Okay.
So now she wakes up and she's kind of unsure of where she's at because everything's kind of like dark and musty. But then as everything starts coming to, she realizes she's in a library.
Okay.
But this library is weird because the shelves are super tall and they go on forever.
Can't see the end.
You can't see the end. So all you see are the flickering lights on top and then the stacks of books forever.
Wow.
And
so does she pick up on that fact right away when she like steps into the library? She's like, what's up with this place?
Yeah, she was kind of like confused as to why she was in this place that she was. And then she sees her old librarian, Mrs. Elm.
She's passed? I mean, in the book, or does it not say?
It doesn't really say because of the different parts of the book. It's...
Okay.
Like, I took it as she had passed.
Yeah, and she was really, like...
So she's really confused. She's like, why am I in this library? Why is this library so weird? And what are you doing here? And this is where she discovers that she has reached her in-between. So... how it is
she educated to this fact, or...
Well, Mrs. Elm fills her in. She's like, so...
Almost like the spirit guide on the other side, almost?
Kind of.
Or to help...
But, see, this isn't quite...
Usher her through?
This is almost like her purgatory, kind of. So, her body, in real life, is alive, but barely. Mm-hmm. It's hanging on. She... is in the in-between.
She is on the brink of life and death.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All
so
right. I understand.
She's kind of hanging out in between and everything, and she's really confused, doesn't quite know what's going on. Mrs. Elm kind of fills her in on, like, well, this is your library, you know? Like, this is all the stories, all the possibilities that could have been. And so she was kind of like, what? You know, like, confused. And she explained that, you know, you're hanging out in this precious area right now. Like, so when she got there, her watch was a certain time. Okay? Or when, I can't remember the time before she faded into the library.
Okay.
But once she noticed where she was at and was kind of taking all this in, she looked at her watch and it was at 00.
Okay.
So, time is always
00s?
00s.
In the place she's at.
In the library.
Well.
And in the...
Now, would everybody's place be different? Hers is a library because of her experience.
Yes, and they actually bring that up because... Well, I'll tell you when we get there.
Okay.
So, she gets the whole song and dance about what this is, and the librarian explains, like, each book is an opportunity that could have been. It's a... You know, there are infinite yous in this life, and so...
There's infinite possibilities.
Yes. And just because of what's going on here doesn't mean something in one of these books isn't. So she pitched it to her like she could just go shopping for her life.
Oh.
Because what it is...
Go find a version that suits you?
The librarian brings her a book.
Okay.
But it's all based on her choices. So the first book the librarian hands her is her book of regrets.
Okay.
And so it's all these regrets in her life that she had ran from or people she had inadvertently hurt and, you know, stuff like that. And she just kind of reads through all these regrets. And she had mentioned that the book itself didn't seem very thick, but the book itself was very heavy.
Oh.
So she was reading through...
I imagine if you could weigh a regret, it would be heavy.
Well, and there are major regrets and there are minor regrets.
Right.
Like, I regret not wearing these shoes to work, or I regret not being in the band with my brother. Like, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So she has her read her book of regrets, and they kind of talk about that, and it's just... I regret not being a better owner to Voltaire. I regret not finishing swimming. I regret not marrying Dan. And so after she reads through her book of regrets, the librarian says, now pick a regret that you would like to erase. So she thought of her, you know, where she wanted to go with that. And with that, she, the first book that she did... was not marrying Dan.
So her first regret she said she'd like to erase is not...
marrying Dan.
Okay.
Now, her and Dan, when they first met and got together and everything, like, he had these big dreams of owning a pub out in the countryside. And, you know, his happiness was just so infectious, and she couldn't help but get excited and wrapped up in it. And then he asked her to marry him, and she felt like she wanted it just because his energy was so infectious. It was happy. And so the librarian hands her a book, and she starts to read it. And so she kind of like phases into this life. And she is standing outside of a pub in the middle of the countryside. And, she's kind of like, what happened? What's going on? Because she's still very new at this. She's still, like, kind of processing what's going on.
She was just in a library reading a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she kind of, like, takes in her surroundings, and she notices she's standing outside a pub. And then she goes inside and, like, has a super awkward conversation with some of the patrons, because in that life, they know her, but she just phased in, so she's got no idea what's going on here.
Gotcha.
So... you know, there's a little discussion between her and Dan. He's shutting the pub down and everything. And then they live above the pub.
Okay.
Okay.
So she's seeing this life that she hasn't lived.
So she regretted not marrying Dan, she wants to see what life would have
been.
been
Yes.
if she would have stayed. Because the rule about the book is, okay, Mrs. Elm pitched it to Nora like, you can pick any life you want. You know, from this book, you know, you have every right to choose because there are infinite possibilities. But she said the minute you start feeling truly disappointed, you will phase out of that.
Oh, okay.
So just as quickly as she went in, she'll disappear.
So some of her regrets turn out to not be regrets?
Well, the process of reading through the books and everything helps erase the regret, kind of.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is I imagine she finally does see this life with Dan, or whatever his name was, and it wasn't as cherry or as fulfillful as she thought it would be.
Yep. That's exactly what happened.
And as soon as she feels disappointment, she gets booted.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So she notices that Dan pours a glass and heads upstairs, and he's tired and irritated. Now you have to think about owning a business with your partner.
Oh, I'm sure.
And how you're the only one working it, right? Both of you guys work it, so you're dog tired by the time the pub closes. He pours himself a drink and he heads upstairs.
Right.
And they exchange in some conversation that really makes her be like, whoa, like, you're kind of a dick.
Yeah.
So she finds out, excuse me, had she married Dan, they would have not had a happy marriage. Their business was failing.
Okay.
He's cheated on her.
So the grass was not greener on the other side of that that regret.
And so the scene is they're standing in their bedroom and he's laying in bed and he's talking to her and he's like, you're acting really weird. Because he's asking her about these people that she talked to and well, she's got no idea.
Yeah.
So because of the infinite realities and everything, the person that was there in her place is kind of just like phased out. They don't really explain what happens to that person. Mm-hmm. But she pops in and she has no idea what that how they acted, what they liked, what they didn't, like what their situation was.
Right, yeah.
And
because that's a completely different life they haven't lived.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Completely.
Yep.
So he's like, you're acting strange, what's going on? And then, you know, she asks a couple questions and then he brings it up that, you know, because she was talking to the chick that he cheated on her with. Mm-hmm. And he asked her how that conversation went, and she goes, oh, it went great. And he's all like, that's weird. You guys have never talked before. Like, so, and then it's revealed that they were fighting over having a baby. Ah. And so he was like, well, are you going to come over here so we can do this and so I can get you pregnant? And she was kind of like, whoa. Because, like, at this point, she had said that she hadn't really thought all that much about children and that it wasn't really a priority, but either way wouldn't have really bothered her.
Okay.
So she's kind of like, whoa.
But she came to the conclusion, this guy wasn't for me anyway.
Yeah. So then she's just completely disappointed by the conversation they have and she phases back to the library. And then the next book I do believe is... I had half my notes written and because I read this thing so quick, like... She
didn't put it down. She did not put this book down.
I just opted to keep reading, and I'm like, well, I'll write down notes when I get to it. So, she went through the book about marrying Dan, okay? Yep. Was not excited about that. So the next regret she picked was not going to Australia with her best friend.
Okay.
So, the librarian...
She starts reading and she fades into Australia?
Yeah, so she fades into Australia and she's kind of confused about where she's at and she doesn't notice her best friend anywhere and then she kind of meanders around and bumps into some people she knows and somehow ends up going back to her apartment. And, she has a roommate. And her roommate informs her that her best friend that she moved to Australia with died in a car accident.
In Australia?
In Australia. Shortly after they had gotten there. So that life she jumped into was her life without her best friend at all.
And so she got disappointed with that probably fairly quickly.
So she was disappointed with that, and she phased out. So then she goes to
it's kind of interesting that they play on her regrets.
Yeah.
And what could have been. I think that's kind of neat. It's
and then
little Charles Dickens a little bit.
Her next regret is that she decides to go through was dropping the Olympic swimmer thing.
Oh, what if she would have continued her career?
Yep. And so she ended up phasing into that life. And she found out that her brother was like her manager, and he was like, you know, kind of like
stealing her money and stuff.
Well, not stealing her money, but just being like super manager. Like, you gotta do this and this and this and this, and you have to be here and here and here and here.
I've got you scheduled.
Yeah. And then just the pressures of she wasn't really impressed with the Olympic swimming. You know, she loves to swim. I mean, that's something she finds solace in, just to jump in the water and keep going and just completely forget.
Okay.
But it's just how, you know, this book is definitely like one of those be careful what you wish for books.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Because you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Obviously, all the choices, she thought, boy, if I only would have took a left. Well, you would have took a left and ended up at another left. Like...
Well, and then she regretted being a horrible owner to Volts. So every life that she was phased into, Volts died. Because, see, what happens is sometimes, like, Volts had an underlying sickness that she didn't know about. So it wasn't that she was a bad owner, it was just that his time was called. And in a lot of the books, the librarian had told her, I said, you do everything right, and Volts still dies early. That's just Volts' path.
Wow. So does she have to come to grips with that?
Yeah, everything she's learning by this point is kind of like she's taking things on, and she's absorbing things, and she's starting to feel in such a way. And I mean, through the whole process, she maintains, I don't want to be doing this. I just want to die. Because in every one of the lives that she's been in so far, she's been on antidepressants. So she's like, every life that I live, I'm still depressed, or you know. Every life that I live, you know, or there was one life she lived that her dad had lived, and ended up cheating on her mom and marrying some hussy, and so like she's learning that just because she had the opportunity to take a new path, that path might not be. Yeah,
there's no reason to hold a regret because. Yeah, they're trying to get her to learn this fact.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have them.
Well, and they're kind of trying to wake her up to be like, yes, you may have thought it was going to go this way, but look what really happened.
That's interesting.
So, and then she picks the regret of not going to school to be the glaciologist. Okay. And so that book gets her smack dab in the Arctic Circle. She wakes up on this boat, and it's, like, frigid. And so she's explaining what it feels like, and I'm like, that feels like North Dakota air. She's talking about how the air stings your lungs when you take a deep breath. Even on their cabin, in their cabin on the ship, she's bundled up and everything, and she's still like, I gotta put on another sweater. Like,
that sounds like North Dakota.
So... So she's smack dab in the middle of the Arctic Circle, or not the Arctic Circle, but there was a special project by Norway that was important to her dad. Okay. And she actually ended up working in that area. And so she phases in, she kind of, you know, she's got a bunkmate, and they had a very, like, personal conversation, because her from that universe and her bunkmate the night before had gotten shit-faced and had, like, heart-to-heart, like, soulful talk. Gotcha. And so she wakes up, she's phased into this life, and she's got no idea what her roommate was talking about. And she was just like, yeah, okay, you know. And then
Now, is she getting experienced at phasing and all that stuff? Like, she's not
Kind
such a
of.
fish out of water? Like,
She still tries to find ways to hide the fact that she's not the person that she was just a couple seconds ago, because she is,
gotcha.
she's shopping for an alternative universe,
Yeah.
basically, is what it is, kind of. And so she starts talking.
Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction. Does she find out she wants to live the life she's got?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she does. Yeah, because of all of these failures and all of these stories, it just kind of starts waking her up, like,
Maybe I made the right choice.
I was making myself the martyr in everything going on in my life. But seeing it this way shows me that it wasn't really she started growing a whole new profound respect for some of the people in her life.
Wow.
And all of this stuff. And it's just really great, but there's a couple more books that I want to discuss before we'll get to the closing of the story. But she ends up talking with this guy in the mess hall on their ship.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like talking to her, and he picks up that something's weird. So he starts asking her questions about her specialty, because in that
she's supposed to be a glaciologist.
Yeah, so she's got degrees, she's written books, she's done seminars.
But her personally hasn't been through the courses.
Yes.
Right.
So she just had to use the base knowledge that she had, which she was still a very bright woman. She was still very smart.
Yeah. That'd be hard to hide, though.
Picking up that something is weird. So anyway, they get done in the mess hall, and they're like, okay, you're on spotter duty. And she's like, what the hell is that?
For icebergs?
Polar bears.
Polar bears.
So she's standing.
I wouldn't have guessed that one.
They bundled her up, and they handed her a gun, and they handed her a flare, and they told her what to do. And they're like, okay, you stand watch while our people are collecting their samples and everything. And if you see a polar bear, shoot up a flare, act real loud, and take this, because they had a cast iron pan and like a ladle
to make noise.
And they'd beat this pan and shoot up the flare so we can see that something's going on. So she's out there in the middle of the frigid cold, and at this point she starts to gain her respect for nature and how nature is so beautiful, and maybe she's had it wrong, and stuff like that. And she's just kind of out there standing in the middle of this frozen tundra, just kind of in her own head, and then she happens to be watching the shoreline, and this great big seal pops out of the water. And she was kind of like, oh, a seal.
Looking at the seal?
And then this polar bear popped out, and then she was like, oh shit.
What
do I do? Probably never really actually shot a gun in real life, so the gun they handed her was flippin' useless. And she almost got creamed by the polar bear, but she stopped it in time.
Right on. Did she warn everybody?
Yep, she shot up the flare, and they heard her screaming, and they heard her pounding on, so they knew to go help her and get the other people away safely. So later that night, they head into port to this town that they're at. And they all go out for drinks because she saved the crew and she had a close call. And that's just kind of one of the, brothers in arms things, you know. And this guy sits down and starts talking with her. And then she finds out that this guy is going through the same thing that she is.
Oh.
Only his afterlife isn't a library. It's the video store that his uncle worked at, or his uncle would always go to, or something like that.
Oh shit, but he's going through the same thing with regrets and phasing and
fading through the books and everything.
But he's going through movies or whatever from the movie video store.
Well, yeah, essentially.
Yeah,
whatever.
Instead of a library, somebody would bring him a cassette or whatever.
And it was his uncle.
Wow.
Yeah. So their in between is purely personal and situational for Nora, she spent a lot.
But it's happening all over the globe.
Yes, and
if this isn't in some kind of a hallucination or a death dream, it's happening all over.
Yeah, and he actually explains to her that he's met other people that are also going through it. One was a coffee shop.
He'd eventually recognize that it was happening to somebody else.
Look, you're supposed to have a degree in this. You've been dodging my questions. You're acting way different. He goes, I think I know what's going on. And then he explained it, and she was like, oh my gosh. And then
that reminds me of Lost this much. Are you my constant? Go ahead.
Well, and then it's really funny because they start, she starts talking with them and they're drinking and everything. And she ends up going to his bunk after they start drinking, and they hook up, and then the disappointment
sets in.
Yeah, and she fades because it was like all about him, like, oh, I'm such a rock star, like, and he gave very little like care to her and her needs at all, and she was just like, eh, and then phased out.
That's funny though. That would have been a comic moment in the show.
Oh, I laughed. And see, that's the thing, is it's very witty. The way she responds to things is just very, like...
Well, we'll get into Matt Haig's writing style and how you like the book here in just a minute.
Yeah. And then the last book is I regret not getting coffee with that... Well, his name was Ash. He's a surgeon.
Okay. She didn't get coffee with a surgeon.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
That one's hard to believe.
Well, when you're at a certain point, when you suffer with some things, you just don't want to put yourself out there and
I'm
be
sure.
another disappointment.
Yeah.
But she goes, I really, really regret not taking that chance and seeing where it led. Mm-hmm. So the librarian hands her a book and was like, here you go. And she phases into this life and she wakes up in the middle of the night and there's someone sleeping in bed next to her. And then she hears a little girl crying down the hall. In this book, her and Ash got married and had a little girl named Molly. Ah. This is the first life that she doesn't see any prescriptions laying around for depression. Mm-hmm. Nothing like that. And at first she's confused, and so she sneaks out into the hall and their little girl, Molly, was like, Mom? And even Molly notices that she's acting weird because Nora starts asking Molly all these questions. And Molly was just like, why are you talking so weird? But eventually, to this point, she's going day by day in this life now. So she hasn't
phased in a while.
Right, she has not phased.
Okay.
And she notices that the longer she stays in this life, the more she's remembering things from that life that she didn't know when she came in. So, if she would have found a book that she liked, that she could have phased into, and I call it phased, that's not what it's called in the book, but that's just the best way to describe it, is they phase in.
Okay, yep.
She stays a good deal of time in this life. And she starts remembering things about this life that she didn't know earlier, but she...
So the longer she's there, she starts to pick up on her past from the place.
So when she decides if that's the life she wants, all the memories would come flooding to her. Oh. And so she started remembering things and remembering people and remembering funny stories of things that happened and stuff like that. And she's like, this life is too perfect. Like, something's up. She's not really... she doesn't want to just let go and accept that this could be her life. But she found that she truly, really did love Molly. And that, maybe children wasn't such a bad thing.
She keeps looking for the banana peel.
Yeah. And then... eventually... something happens and she was like, oh, this is... Because she goes, I can feel it coming. She said, I don't have much time. So she's trying to sort out some of the things from her previous life through this lesson, because that's each one of these books is like a lesson.
Yep. And is it coming up to the point where she has to make a choice? Do I stay here forever?
Yes.
That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes. And eventually she phases out of that life. And then the things start happening in the library, like, you know how when you're inside of a building when it's earthquaking and like everything's shaking and the lights are swaying and stuff is falling down? Well, the way I took it when I read the book is that her human life, like her actual real life, like her body was starting to fade.
Yeah.
And so her library was falling apart. And, this is... she started freaking out and she's like, oh my God. But by this point, she's like, I don't want to die. I don't want, she has made her journey and she has come full circle.
She learned what she needed to.
Yeah. And she didn't want to not wake up. And so the library's crumbling all around her, and the librarian's like, there's one book. And she goes, I can't grab it for you. You have to go grab it. So she's crawling through this library that's
as
like,
it's falling
apart, like books are falling, like stacks are falling over. And she finds this book, and she opens it up, and it's blank. So she starts writing in this book.
A new story?
And then she phases back into her human body. And she wakes up on her bed and gets violently ill, and then crawls out to have someone phone for help. And so she had 999, because that's what it is over there, I believe.
Okay.
She had her old neighbor call 999, and she was admitted into the hospital, and her brother shows up. And they have a heart-to-heart, and he's like, hey, I didn't want you to think I was dodging you because of the band thing. Like, I've been going through a lot of stuff on my own, and I didn't want to bring it to you. And so she found out that that was just a huge misunderstanding. He wasn't dodging her.
Gotcha.
He wasn't mad at her for quitting the band. It's just he had his stuff going on. And that's the thing. In some of these books, her brother was an alcoholic.
Right, yeah.
In some of these books, her brother had died.
Right.
In some of these books, her brother was like a momager. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
A broager, I guess.
Yeah.
But she just, she's very thankful to be awake and just very glad to come to and everything. And she starts to realize that everything in her old life wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
She was just handling it in a different way. And that's the thing, is like, everybody handles things differently. So... Well,
she wasn't dealing with anything. She would just run and then have regret about it.
And so she had this mounting pile of regrets, and then everything was just so bad every day that she just didn't want to anymore.
Now, is that how the book ends?
She ends up going back home, and it's just a nice light ending, like a sweet good night kind of thing.
Like she's happy to be alive, and she's ready to move forward.
She finds out that her neighbor needs her, like, because she was picking up meds for her old man neighbor, and before she went to work that day, he was like, well, I don't need you to get my meds anymore, and just... So she didn't feel needed, and then just to see all these people come out of the woodwork to be like, hey, we're here for you.
I have a couple questions about the book.
Yes.
Now, do you think that this was all a pill-induced, like, fever dream, or do you think that she was actually in purgatory and people around the world were also in purgatory? Or does it not even explain that? It was obviously real for her.
Yeah.
Because she experienced it and went through it. But in reality, do you think it happened?
Me personally, I think it was all in her head, but it was still a journey that she needed to make.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Just because... How do I want to say this?
Just because it's not physically real doesn't mean it wasn't emotionally real for her.
And like...
the journey she took.
And like in our real life world, like you hear stories of people who are like, I tried to kill myself and it didn't work, but I saw this while I believe each individual has their own in-between if they're not quite sure which way they're gonna go. See, what I took from this book is Nora thought she wanted to die, but she didn't really want to die. And she needed to see that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You definitely need to be careful what you wish for, because what you get sometimes will not be what you were bargaining for at all.
Yeah.
And it definitely just it brings to light, like, how people suffer. And that's what I really, really like about this book and how it was written is, like, everybody is different. Mm-hmm. Everybody has their own struggles. But some of the themes about the depression and the things she feels, I can totally relate to that.
Right on.
I can understand where she is, because at one point in time, I was there at that point. But it's not, like she had her awakening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was like, I have been given a gift, and I know that I am capable of doing whatever I want to. I'm in charge of writing my own story, and it starts today. And then
that's fantastic.
As I finished reading the book, I pictured like gates opening to like a gorgeous meadow, just kind of like renewing and rebirth.
Before we move on and everything, I would just like to thank Squids, my buddy.
Yes, thank you.
He bought this for me for my birthday, and my lovely wife has read it, and now I am going to read it.
I called dibs on it first.
It's right up my alley.
Bookworm.
Right up my alley. So go ahead and give your thoughts on his writing or whatever, and your bookmarks and all that.
I would give this book 5 out of 5 bookmarks.
Wow.
Yeah, just how...
I know you couldn't put it down.
Yeah, and it was a struggle for me to go to work and have to actually like be productive and not be able to pick up my book and read, because like as I'm back there baking buns or flipping caramel rolls, I'm just like, well, what if she does this? Or... like, what happens if this,
or wondering what the next book is going to be, Wow.
I would definitely recommend it. It's a very good read. Just to be brutally honest about depression and how the person feels, like, to be open and honest about it like that is pretty... Because I believe, like, mental illness has this stigma attached to it. And
people suffer in silence. They do.
And, it can be hard to reach out. It really can. I mean, even when you feel the lowest of the low, like, it always gets better. And suicide is such a permanent response to a temporary...
Yeah, a permanent solution to a part-time problem.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I encourage you, really, I really do. If you are struggling at all, there's no shame in asking for help. Like,
absolutely.
And the people who like to shame people, I mean, you don't understand what's going through another person's head. You don't know what they're processing. You don't know how they're processing it. That's why, I mean, I think as a society, we need to be nicer to everybody, because you don't know what another person is carrying.
Right.
Or
suffering from,
exactly.
Or whatever.
And I just, a little more understanding and a little more kindness would go a lot farther. It really would.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely give this a read. It was a nice, quick, breezy read for me. I mean, the subject matter was not light or breezy, but just wanting to clip through and just kind of figure out where she's going and what she's learning. It just kind of opened up a whole new, you are in charge of your destiny. I mean, if you're upset with how things are going now, change them.
Yeah.
Like, you can do anything.
Absolutely.
So
I really like that about the book.
Make the change and do it. I mean, I know it's hard, and I myself am guilty of, I should do this or we should do that, and then we never do it because time and, But just take the opportunity to actually go out and live life.
Give the phone number again, too.
And I would like to leave you guys the phone number one more time for the suicide prevention hotline. And it's 1-800-273-8255. And please, just don't be afraid to reach out.
So, 5 out of 5 bookmarks. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's the first perfect score book that I have had so far. And I guess I can tell you guys what my next book is, because I have it picked out already. My next book is going to be called When We Believed in Mermaids by Barbara O'Neill.
Awesome.
So I'm very excited to pick that up and see where that adventure takes me, because the blurb I read had me like that. So
right on. Well, the movie that I am doing today is called Greenland, and it's got Gerard Butler in it, and the director was Rick Roman Wah, if I'm saying that correct, and the writer was Chris Sparling. Stars Gerard Butler, Marina Baccarin, which is his wife, Roger Dale Floyd, which is his son, I believe. It is kind of a family movie, but it's also an apocalyptic one. I'm going to come back over here and get into it.
Well, nothing brings the family together like surviving an apocalypse, I guess.
Absolutely. I love these kind of movies. I truly do. I love the apocalyptic type of movies. Anything that is kind of like Fallout or, oh man, what's another good one? What's that Denzel Washington movie? Has that religious undertone going through it. Oh, that stinks. I can't remember the movie.
I don't know about...
The Book of Jacob?
Oh, the Book of Eli.
Eli. The Book of... Yeah, Eli. The Silent Assassin, Eli Levy. I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah, The Book of Eli is a fabulous movie. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Greenland, Gerard Butler. So the movie opens with Gerard Butler. He's standing at a large table. He seems to be working on some blueprints, like, over and over again. It's like he's scribbling and erasing, and... So
it's driving him nuts that he can't figure out what that little piece he needs to make the project work.
Something is driving him nuts. Something. You don't know, it doesn't explain what it is or what's on his mind or anything.
Unclear.
Yeah, unclear. But he's at this construction site. He seems to be an architect, or else why is he drawing on architectural plans? It's unclear, but you figure he is, And a dude walks up, and they start talking a little bit, and, he's like, hey, how come you haven't started pouring this or that? And, we're behind schedule and all this. And dude tells him to relax and basically tells him, you can just sign that delivery form or whatever, and I will take care of it. You can, go.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I do need to get home to my family or whatever, and... so he ends up signing this note or whatever, and he takes off. He jumps in his car. Now, while he's in his car...
Does him signing that note come back to bite him in the butt later?
Not at all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. This movie is not about his architectural career at all.
Well, I thought it was going to be kind of like a bait and switch thing. Kind of like just show him scribbling something and kind of half-heartedly, and then having it be like a... apocalypse order or something like.
Right. So he jumps in his car and he starts heading out. Well, over the radio, you hear some people discussing a big event that's coming up. They call it an interstellar comet. Clark has appeared out of the deep galaxy that they don't know. Nobody had seen it. Nobody knew it was coming. But this
it just kind of popped up, and here it is.
Yep, the comet came out of a dark region of the galaxy and is starting to head towards Earth. Now, the comet has also broken up into pieces.
Yeah.
They're discussing it on the radio about this interstellar comet named Clark. So, Gerard Butler gets home, and what's really strange is he walks up to his door, and he goes to ring the doorbell, and then he goes to put his key in, and then he goes to ring the doorbell again, and he doesn't know. He almost knocks, and then he just opens it up with his key.
So, are him and his wife divorced, and he technically doesn't,
You're on top of it, but they're not divorced.
I have a comment I would like to call out real quick.
Okay.
Miss Jamie Grilly, I absolutely love the way you two discuss your book and his movies. So dang happy and proud of you. Well, thank you, Jamie. I love your face. We appreciate you stopping by to hang out.
Absolutely. Okay, so he goes home and he doesn't even open his own damn door. It's kind of strange. So exactly my thought at that moment. I was like, either he don't live here no more.
Yeah.
Or they're divorced or something.
Is that something that piqued your interest in a very weird way? Why is he...
Yeah.
Is it something they fixate on? Is that important to anything?
I don't know if it's important for, the plot in any way, but it gives you a very, immediate insight into their relationship. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though you've never met her, you haven't seen them interact.
Strained.
Yes, very much.
Gotcha.
That's the feeling you get. All right, let me get my phone to work again. Okay, yeah, very weird as he approaches that door. He almost rings the doorbell, he hesitates, and then finally he just opens it with his keys. And as he walks in, he has a very awkward conversation with his wife. He's standing there, and they're, at a distance.
Yeah.
She like she
so
was
they were trying to insinuate a
space.
divide.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So basically, what ends up happening is he walks in the door and he hears her exercising on the elliptical or whatever, or the treadmill. And he walks in and he sees her and he knows that she doesn't notice him. So he's like awkwardly trying to figure out how to knock on the wall or whatever, and he ends up scaring her anyways.
Yeah.
And anyway, they have a very awkward conversation about a dinner party that they're going to have, that people are going to attend. And also about him coming home. He says, where's the boy? Talking about his kid. And
we will definitely have to hang out one of these days because we miss you too, Jamie.
Absolutely. So they have this weird, awkward conversation. You can feel the tension, kind of.
Yeah. You know that it's not all puppies and rainbows. And...
Correct. There is something that has strained the marriage. Obviously, they don't talk directly about it, but they kind of dance around it. She goes, now you being home shouldn't confuse him anymore. Talking about the kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
So was it his job?
He never touches her. He doesn't kiss her. He doesn't do any of that stuff. So it's like, you don't quite know what's going on.
Business transaction-y almost?
Maybe. Like, it's unclear. So
Do they ever recircle back to that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all explained and figured out. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's literally an apocalyptic show. And you can't call it a post-apocalyptic because that's after the apocalypse.
Yeah.
This is during. So...
Down, buddy. Don't hurt your walking sticks.
So, okay. But you get the intention that they're working things out.
Yeah.
You know? The kid comes running up and he hugs his dad and they start to discuss his art, school, stuff like catching up because he's been you get
absent.
the feeling he hasn't been there for a little bit.
Yeah.
And the kid shows him a piece of his art and it's got a comet in the picture and he goes, "Oh, what's this?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Clark." And they talk and stuff and it's emphasizing this comet, is coming. Let's see. And you also notice that his kid is ill. He's got a pump on his side, a little tiny device that is like attached right to his hip.
Oh.
I called it right away because I've known.
Insulin pump?
Yes,
Yeah.
It is an insulin pump. Correct. The kid is ill. He suffers. He needs insulin and it needs it monitored, and the pump controls it. As they're walking around the house, there's a TV on behind him, and it cuts to an interview or a news broadcast, and it starts talking about the comet again. He's helping him with his homework at this point, and the TV's on, and they're talking about Clark, how it's supposed to touch down a piece of it. It's going to be a beautiful show, no danger, don't worry. A piece of this comet is going to enter the ocean somewhere between Europe and the coast of Africa or something. So, like, don't worry, and comets don't impact the Earth. Like, they burn up or they explode. Yeah. They don't actually impact like a meteor would,
Yeah.
So the news is basically saying, hey, it's going to be great, come tune in and watch it, and blah, blah, blah.
I don't feel like it's going to be that great.
Yeah, no, it's not. If it was...
So, is it really a comet then, or is it a meteorite? Or meteor?
It's a comet. It's a comet. Well, they call it Comet Clark. Interstellar body Comet Clark or something like that.
Ow.
As he's helping his kid with the homework and they get finished, and he looks over and he turns the TV off, the kid looks up at him and starts asking, like, is Mama make you leave again? Like, you realize that
the kid notices little things. And see, children notice way more than we give them credit for. They do.
Absolutely. And here's another strange part, okay? Clearly, he's back home. Clearly, they're still married, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So, he puts his kid to bed, and then he goes out to his truck and he starts unpacking. He grabs all of his stuff, and he moves it into a side room. He doesn't move it into the bedroom.
Yeah.
He literally moves it into, like, a guest bedroom.
Do they explain later on down the road why it is that way? Or did they
why the strain is there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Is it work related?
No.
Okay.
So he unpacks his truck and stuff. The next morning, the kid is looking with binoculars outside up at Clark. You can see it in the atmosphere. Like, not in the atmosphere, but you can see it beyond the atmosphere.
Yeah, you
like,
could see it coming closer.
Yes, but instead of like a giant orb or something, it's like 3 small orbs and a brighter one behind it. Like, you can't see what it is exactly yet, but he's looking through his binoculars, and he's checking it out. In the background, it says large pieces of Clark will enter the atmosphere and touch and make not landfall, but touchdown in the water, possibly. He goes back in, and his old lady is telling him the stuff that she needs from the store for the
dinner party.
Yeah, for the dinner party that they're about to have, or barbecue or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, I'm starting the grill, man." And she's like, "Well, you need to go." And he's like, "All right." You can tell he had more of an attitude about it, but he's like, "Fuck, I'm home. I'll do whatever you need."
Yeah, let's just get it over.
Yes,
with.
You kind of get that. He doesn't do it in a trash way or anything, but you can tell he's like, this is an inconvenience, kind of.
Yeah.
So he grabs the kid, and they're getting in the car, and he's like, "Can I get a toy?" He's like, "Sure." So they get to the store, so they go to get this stuff. So they go to they drive up into the shopping mall. Now, when they pull up into the shopping mall, and they step out, they hear all these planes, and they look up, and you can see a whole sky full, like from as far as the eye can see from the right and to the left. As they step out of the car and look up, you can see nothing but lines of planes that are going in one direction and helicopters shortly following. So the man looks up in the sky, and he's like, "Whoa, what the hell is that?" And my instant thought was, what in the fuck do they know? You don't, buddy.
Right.
Okay?
Are they going to blow that thing into smithereens?
No. This is not an Independence Day or a that kind of a movie.
Yeah.
Well, the movie does, not go in certain directions you would expect it to, though.
So there are some, haha, gotcha.
Kind of. So, all right, so he just shakes it off. He doesn't have a thought about it, really, but they go into the store. But my thought was, what do they know,
Yeah.
And then as he's exits the car, the kid looks up, and they're amazed at all these huge airliners. And as they look, and they pan to the right before they walk in the store, there's Clark up in the, top right-hand corner, Not putting those two things together, even though the director was like, "Message!"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about how they frame a shot is I took a film study class in high school. So they taught us a lot about, how they frame the shots and how you can kind of tell how things are going to go.
Yep.
I
can by the writing, usually.
Yeah.
That's how I'm able to...
Well, how many times have I said, there's been a certain shot, and I'm like, oh, that's going to happen, and then it does. Because it's just kind of how they set it up and they frame it out.
Absolutely. So, okay, here it goes. So, they're running around grabbing stuff inside of the store, and as they shop, all of a sudden his phone, bloop, 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 like an Amber Alert.
Oh, yeah, like the alarm sound.
Yes, but it's in a presidential alert.
Oh.
And as his phone starts chirping and getting loud and obnoxious, he looks around and people are looking at him. Nobody else's phone is going off. It's very fucking weird.
Does he have a government job?
No, he does not.
Is he a construction worker?
He's an architect.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
He's an architect.
Duh.
Now, Gerard Butler's the father. I named off the wife's name, or the actress's real name and the son's real name. I don't know their names. They don't actually call them by their names. Eventually, they do. Gerard Butler's character's name is John. But I don't think they even say the other two the kid name or not. But anyway, okay. So, the phone rings and it's the Department of Homeland Security. So, a presidential alert comes up, and then the phone starts ringing, and it says Homeland Security. He clicks on it, and he answers the damn phone. An automated, he picks up, and it's an automated voice saying he and his family have been chosen for relocation under presidential authority. Back at his house, his wife is blow drying her hair, and she can't hear anything, but it's coming across their smart TV too. The he's listening to it, and it starts giving him messages like, you and your family have been allotted a space. You get one fucking carry-on. Be at this airport at such and such time to be granted access. Like they're literally, the government is somehow trying to squirrel important people away.
Very much so, giving me Fallout 4 vibes.
Fallout 4 and
where they show up and they're like,
get
a spot.
Or the movies where the world is going to end, like The Day After Tomorrow, or it's almost like that, where the government has some kind of
contingency plan.
Correct. And they need people. Okay, so and so it's being blared on the TV at home as she's blow drying her hair. They drive home and they pass all kinds of military vehicles that are arriving into the town. Arriving home, the barbecue has already started. Friends and family are already sitting around the TV. And they're all discussing, hey, in about 5 minutes, a small piece of Clark's going to hit. And they're all sitting around the TV like they're watching the ball drop.
Yeah,
okay,
like it's entertainment value.
But just think about this. This is scarier than hell, okay? Scarier than hell for a few reasons. For one, this is exactly how it would happen in real life. If the government knew a meteor impact was going to happen and hundreds of thousands of people were going to die, I don't think we would be told about it. We would have to look up in the sky and fucking see it, and then they would tell us about it. Yeah. And they wouldn't tell us how bad it was either. They would lie to us at first. And that is basically what
How to prevent the mass panic.
Correct. This is kind of how it would play out in real life, I believe. And in the meantime, they would be breaking their necks for the contingency plan and to save certain people for the rebuilding or whatever.
Yeah, and is he just that good at his architect job that the government was like, we need you?
Well, how many architects do you think are on the fucking planet or in the United States that the United States could get their hands on in a contingency plan? Not a lot, probably.
Maybe, maybe not.
Contractor? Yes. Architect? I don't know. Architect's a little bit...
Architect worth their salt anyway.
True that. Okay, so they pass all these military vehicles, they get home, and all these people are sitting around the TV, and they're not breaking bread, but they're like drinking wine, and
and get together.
Yeah, and they literally have the kids in the front, sitting in front of the couch, because all the adults are on the couch, sitting on the floor up watching, waiting for this to happen. The TV is saying, let's see. I skipped ahead. I'm sorry. Is a small piece of Clark is about to hit. They're watching live. He asks his wife if she knew they were selected for shelter. She says no. She doesn't buy what the TV is saying. So
she's skeptical of it.
Yes. But as he's upstairs talking to her and it's going across the TV upstairs, it's going across the TV downstairs too.
Oh, so all the guests are seeing that.
Yeah, and they're like, what the hell is that? They're not even paying attention to it, really.
Yeah.
But he comes back down, and they go, yeah, and they're counting it down, and they're like, 3, 2, 1, and nothing happens. And they're like, huh, didn't it hit the ocean? John, his name is, he runs outside, and he's looking, and there's nothing going on, and then all of a sudden, all these birds freak out and start taking off in one way.
Yeah, when the animals start taking off, you know that
the shit's hit the fan.
You're in trouble. It's
so,
about to get real.
So this concussive blast, okay?
From the comet landing, or a chunk of landing.
Yes, the comet, a concussive blast goes and breaks all the windows in the neighborhood and knocks him down. Some of the birds fall out of the sky. He stands up and he's like, wow, that wasn't supposed to hit. And he runs in the house, and sure enough, after the smoke clears and they go, we have some startling footage to show you from Florida. And it shows a helicopter that's trying to track the piece going into the water. It landfalls in Florida. It hits the ground. And it causes this huge destruction, and the whole ground becomes molten, and it spits shit way up into the air, and the helicopter crashes, and the camera goes out.
Oh, wow.
And they're saying, and then now, we have a global emergency, blah blah blah, and they start going through some of the information that they have.
Is his wife starting to buy hay?
After that, yes.
Yeah. Wowzers.
A blast wave breaks the windows and forces Butler to the ground. Inside, the TV reports that a piece struck Florida, not the ocean. Between Tampa and Orlando is gone. Gone. TV shows the impact, and Butler's phone goes off again with the alert. And this time, when the alert goes across the TV, all the people in his living room are paying very close attention. And they're all looking at their phone. Why aren't ours going off? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're being left behind.
Oh.
Fuckers. Yeah.
Awkward.
Yeah. Alert, and his friends notice as everyone starts to panic. You know, they're all like, how come my phone isn't going off? What makes you special? Where are they telling you to go? You know, all this stuff. Explains that bring no one else with you. Only the people designated to come. And bring one carry-on, one bag. So as all of the people that are inside their home rush home, you know, they start rushing around and start packing. Like frantically, like not everybody got this fucking signal. Yeah, not everybody is told, get your feet here so we can help you. Yeah. Like not everybody's getting a help card.
Yeah.
Okay? So they rush around and they pack. And they literally show you the fridge, they pull out the insulin. They go all the way to the bag showing it get packed. That is important.
Yeah.
Because without insulin, the kid dies.
Yeah, well, because if he's got a pump like that, that's some pretty serious issue.
Yeah, the reason people would have a insulin pump is to monitor the insulin levels in their body, and they cannot do it with a shot. So they have to have this pump that monitors their levels for them that keeps putting what they need inside their body.
See, I've known people that have had to do the insulin shots, but never anyone that had a pump that I'm aware of.
A very good friend of mine in Texas has a pump. I will not say his name though. But okay, so they rush and they pack, and they make the camera makes damn sure you see them pack insulin. Nathan is the boy's name. You just find that out as they're talking. I knew they gave the names, but they didn't give you the names. Like, he didn't walk in and go, oh, hi, you know, and say her name or anything. So, okay, so they get the insulin, they put it in there, they pack all these bags, and as they go outside, the little boy goes, Dad, look, as he's packing the car, and he goes, the sky's on fire. And they look up, and sure enough, like, part of the atmosphere looks like it's almost on fire.
Glowing.
Yeah, glowing, like embers, like a sock.
Like when you burn a piece of paper and you watch the flame. It's not flame, but you watch it burn it anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of doing that. And it doesn't explain if that is stuff that was thrown up into the atmosphere or if the atmosphere was literally on fire. It doesn't explain.
Right, or other stuff coming through behind.
Right. So, okay, the sky's on fire. They jump in the car and they tear off. They get stopped by a neighbor. So, like, he walks out of his house and he stops them, and he says, John, what are we going to do? We weren't selected. And he said, I know. He said, John says, when he gets to where he's going, he will let them know all the information he knows and to try to help them be safe.
Yeah.
Okay? He is not reassured. He says, John, the news is saying that more fragments are on the way. And the news is also saying there's a much larger chunk on its way as well. It's a planet killer.
Ooh.
And he tells him, hey, I will call you. I will try to help you, but I have to get where I have to go or I can't help you or me.
Right.
And he says, okay, and he steps aside. They peel out. They don't get very far before another neighbor stops them. Because they live in a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And, like, everybody was basically at their house. All of them know that he's got
that he's got places to be.
A survival card to play. And, yeah. So, and when they got back to the barbecue and all the people were there was a couple kids sitting down. And one of them was a girl, which was the boy's, like, good friend.
Yeah.
Okay? And a woman comes out in the street and stops the car and says, listen, you have to take her. They'll take another kid. I'm sure of it. Just take my kid. And they have to literally look at this lady and say, we can't. What? We're going to take, and Gerard Butler literally looks at his wife and she's like, we have to help her.
We can take her. And he goes, no. What, we're
What
going
hap-
to... He goes, what is going to happen when we take her to the airfield and they leave her there standing alone when we take off?
Yeah.
What's going to happen to her then? Then she's alone. At least here she's with her mother.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
So that's the decision. So the lady is like upset. The kid is crying in the back and he's super upset. And the lady is literally screaming at him. Like this is, you're our lifeline. You can save us.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything. That's what she feels like.
Yeah.
Okay? It's kind of a trend that kind of comes back into the movie a little later
now,
too.
I only saw the cover briefly. Do they end up taking this girl? And is there 2 kids on the cover?
Nope.
Oh, I thought I saw 2.
Nope.
So my eyes were deceiving me then.
Yep. Absolutely. So they have a moment where this lady is literally panicking because she wants them to take her daughter to give her a chance to live.
Yeah.
They deny her.
And I mean, that's got to be so hard for both parties. I mean, because you know they want to take her. You know that they would.
Especially the mother. But the daughter's name was Ellie. But they argue and they end up driving off, leaving their neighborhood behind. So as they're going, they start to drive, and as they come up to like some cities, they start to see some burning and looting going on. Nothing like what happened after George Floyd, or nothing like the LA riots or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you can see that civilization is starting to unwind a little bit. As soon as people figured out that the government was fucking lying to them about
what's the point? Just get what we want and
try to. Yep. Radio is prepping everyone for a collapse of our nation. They literally say that. They say everyone needs to be prepared for the collapse of our nation. And they get... oh, yeah, okay. And as they're hearing this and listening to the radio, they get stuck on an off-ramp. Like, you can literally see nothing but traffic up this ramp and all the way fucking down. Nobody's moving. It's bumper to bumper.
Yeah. So they're going to have to run for it now.
Well, and the lady says, well, that's good, that so many are going to be saved. And he said they all didn't get a call. They just know where to be.
Yeah.
So everybody who didn't get a call, who knows where to be, are trying to get there to be saved.
Yeah, well, how many people that were in that house when they saw it over the TV called their neighbor, and the next called the sack over, who called their friend, who called their friend?
It would get out very quickly. Yeah. It would.
Especially in an emergency situation like that.
So he flips it in reverse and he backs up. He starts flooring it, and he's literally like backing up like 20 miles an hour trying to get past all these vehicles so he can flip a bitch and go down the off ramp and find another way. Try to find a way around.
Yeah.
And as the lady is screaming and freaking out, and the little girl's crying and the little boy's crying in the back, he reaches in his backpack to pull out his fucking blanket and his meds fall out of the backpack. They make a point to show you that his insulin falls out of the backpack.
At some point, are they going to have to leave the vehicle and run for it, though?
Yes.
And so then his medicine gets left behind.
You saw that coming, yes.
Son of a gun.
You certainly saw that coming.
Damn it.
Yep, he takes his blanket out and his insulin falls out.
Not the poor kid.
The radio kicks back on and says more pieces are coming and more cities will certainly be destroyed. They'll actually be hit. And then it kicks on that they don't call it NASA. They say the space agency is worried about a particular shard that will cause an extinction level event.
Space Force?
Space balls.
Comb the deserts.
Absolutely. All right. So the space agency is worried about a particular shard that will cause an extinction level event, which that is what killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Changed the face of our planet and let us mammals take over.
Well, our reign's gotta end eventually, I guess. It's the cycle of history.
Absolutely. So they drive through the night and they make it to where they can't drive anymore. And hundreds of people are now shuffling about out of their cars heading down the highway. Like they got close enough to the Air Force Base or wherever they're heading.
So they're gonna
they have to hoof it.
Yeah.
Yep. Hundreds of people are now shuffling about with their one piece of luggage at the front of the line. So with their one piece of luggage, they're all hurrying, or whatever, and they have a bag and a luggage container, or whatever, and they get out of the vehicle, they get all their stuff minus the meds, and
Does the boy die?
I'm not telling you.
What?
So that you'll find out. So they take off. So they take off for the front, of where all these people are gathered. You can see people, in the distance. And they make their way all the way to the front, and when they are towards the front, and they see all these military people in front of this military base that has all these gates and checkpoints. And most of the people standing out there screaming for help aren't chosen.
Oh, so now they're going to have to make their way through the sea of people that
They have
were
to
denied, and then...
They have to make their way through the sea of people that were denied, and also be like, I've been chosen!
Yeah.
To try to get access.
Yep.
And they're, okay, so the military people are holding off a huge crowd. Everyone is shouting that they need to be safe. And over a loudspeaker, you hear this. If you have not been chosen, do not approach the gate. You will be shot. Yeah. So they're telling people, hey, you fucking storm this bitch. You're all getting lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scary.
Which is how most apocalyptic movies end up going, really, if you think about it.
Well, when you have a whole bunch of people and they're terrified and all they want to do is survive, or all they want to do is feed their children, and you have food, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
When it comes down to it, it's just going to be human instinct to survive and do whatever they have to do to take care of their own.
7 to 10 days. Stop pumping water and bringing food into cities. 7 to 10 days. That's all it takes. You will see how fucking caveman-like we can still be. And I have a kind heart, but I know that's true.
Yeah, well... When you get down to it, I mean, there are some things in this world that will strip the humanity from you, and you are essentially just an animal surviving.
So the guards let a few people by, and John starts to yell, "We were selected!" And another piece hits somewhere in the USA, and all the lights go out. Like, woo! Yeah. All the lights go out in the base, and
emergency spotlight.
Yep, emergency lights pop on, and everybody in the crowd starts to panic. But starts to yell, "We were selected," and the lights go out, and pandemonium hits. They make it out to the very front, and they show their credentials, and they are allowed inside. They go to board a huge airliner like the ones that flew over the grocery store. The military is making them dump more belongings. So, they've got, a mountain of fucking, luggage. And they're like, one bag! Fit everything in the one bag, or it's getting left behind. So, they're literally unpacking people, making them repack, and then chucking all their shit in a pile. This is drastic. These are... You can't take 3 bags with you. There ain't going to be fucking room for that.
Well, they were told in the beginning they'll only bring 1 bag.
Right, but now 1 bag per person. Now they're saying 1 bag per family. That's the difference. Or they meant 1 bag and everybody brought a bag.
1 bag per. Okay, gotcha.
Correct. One of the two happened. All right. They realize. Okay. Yeah. So at this point, as they're packing the fucking bag, everything into 1 bag, they realize his medicine is gone.
Oh, shit.
Yep. They realize his meds are in the car, and John decides to leave to retrieve it. He has 15 minutes before the plane leaves.
Dude guy.
I know. First, he does the right thing, though. He goes and he asks. He says, "Hey, I have my bracelet. Will this get me back in?" And he says, "Yes." He goes, "This will get me back in." He asks him twice. He says, "Yes." He goes, "How long do I got?" And he said, 10, 15 minutes. So he just starts beating feet to get back to the car. Okay. The wife, okay, so as this is going on, you see him run to the car, right? He gets to the car, he finds the meds. Oh, okay, good. He grabs them, and then it cuts to her. She's getting impatient because he hasn't come back yet.
Yeah.
So she goes up to a fucking guard, and she's like, hey, sir, listen. My husband went to go get his meds and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Wait, stop, ma'am. Meds? What do you mean meds?
Oh no.
Yep. And
is it because he's insulin dependent that it has an issue, so he's not viable for this?
He's going to be excluded.
Oh.
Yep.
What?
So
does he tell him to shove it and he just takes his family and they go...
The wife asks the army guy about her kid's meds, and immediately there's an issue. If the kid is sick, he probably can't... He won't be selected. And at this point, you see John hoofing it back to the facility. It's like cutting back and forth. And the army guy says, any life-threatening illnesses isn't allowed. He shouldn't have made it past screening. Now the mother pleads for her child, as her neighbor did.
Wow.
Yep. John is let back in the facility and is directed to a plane. Cut back to John's wife. It looks like her and their son are being left alone. It cuts back to John, holding his kid's med, is asked by a guy how he made it on a plane being sick. Because, they escort John directly to the plane. He thinks his wife and kid is on the plane. He gets escorted to the plane, and he's, yelling, and he can't find him, and he eventually sits down, defeated, they got to be on the plane or another plane.
Yeah.
I'll see him when we get where we're going. And he sits down, and a guy notices what he's carrying, and he goes, hey, what meds are those? And he goes, oh, it's insulin. It's for my son. And he goes, how in the fuck did you get by screening? And he goes, no, it's not. And he goes, no. He goes, my sister's kid got left behind. And he's like, oh, shit. So now he realizes that his wife and his kid's probably not on a plane. The plane door's shutting behind him, too. Or shutting, too.
See, I have a feeling if I were watching this movie, I'd be like... you know how I can get when I'm watching some movies like that, scream at the TV, stuff like that.
Yep. John now realizes his son and wife are not on a plane as the ramp starts to lift. The wife is escorted back to the front gate back to the front gate, meaning they're walking her right past and right back out to the crowd of all the people that are chanting, "Help me," and all that shit. They're basically kicking her out of the facility. You can still go, ma'am. Do you want to leave your kid? No? Well, you're both leaving. Pretty much.
Wow.
Yep. The wife is escorted back to the front as the military is informed of a perimeter breach and all hell breaks loose. So a loud siren kicks on. As soon as they push her out of the entrance or whatever, a loud siren kicks on. Perimeter breach! And people run from the sides, and then they try to push past her and run past all the guards.
Yeah.
Well, what happens, do you think? The military opens fire on the people who are trying to bum rush.
Yeah.
Well, as this is happening, right before the alarm screeches, John convinces the guy to, he goes, open the fucking gate. My wife and kid aren't on a plane. Open the gate, or open the back hatch. I need to go. I need to get off. And he goes, sir, you'll be left behind. He goes, I don't fucking care. So they open the back thing. As John comes down, all these people are running, and there's a guy who was fueling the planes, gets shot. And he falls down, and now there's a whole pool of this fuel that is spilling out everywhere. So as John comes down the ramp, he turns and he sees the guy with all the fuel going, and more bullets are flying, and he yells, there's a fuel leak, everybody get out! And everybody runs out of the plane, and right as they hit the hangar bay doors, in the...
blew?
Yep, it blows up, and 3 planes blow up, pushes him to the ground, and all he can do is turn and look and think maybe his wife, maybe they were on one of them planes, because 3 of them just blew up.
Yeah.
He's pretty sure they're not, though.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And after that, everything explodes. John starts looking for his wife and kid as they start looking for meds. So John has the medicine. They're separated now. Okay. She went out the front. He's in the back. Okay? Yeah. And they're about 40 minutes difference. As in, how it's all transpiring and shit.
Yeah.
So, she, She leaves and she goes back to the truck to go to the vehicle to find his meds. His meds aren't there. She starts freaking out. She gets on her phone and she sends him a text message saying, "I'm going to my dad's. He's got medicine there." You know,
Yeah.
like more meds or whatever.
Yeah.
Or she says that we're gonna try to make it to my dad's. We have to get him meds. So I figured meds were there.
Yeah.
She makes a stop at a pharmacy to try to find meds. But anyway, so she starts to leave with him towards her dad's, whatever direction that is. As they start looking for meds, the kid's pump is empty. It's the apocalypse now. He makes it to the car and he finds a note heading to dad's. So she didn't leave him a text message. She ends up text messaging him. I got that confused. I'm sorry. She leaves a note and sticks it to the car. So when he gets there, he knows where they're heading.
Yeah. So a good chunk of this movie, they're separate, and he's trying to catch up to
Yes.
them then.
Yes, they're trying to catch
So
up.
the things they're experiencing, they're not experiencing together.
Yep. Okay, so while he gets there and he's reading the note, cut to his wife and kid heading into a pharmacy at a little ransacked, like, strip mall.
Yeah.
Okay? She goes through, and there's a whole bunch of people looting in there and stuff, but nothing violent at this point.
Yeah.
She goes in and she finds exactly what she needs. She sits down to administer the medicine, and right as she's done giving him his meds, she starts hearing gunshots, and people start screaming. Some people went in to loot the good drugs and started killing some people that were in there.
Yeah.
Well, her and her son barely fucking escape on their hands and knees getting out of the place. They do get out the front door as more shootings and people are like cradling dead people, you know, and
Yeah.
crying because they were shot.
Mass chaos.
Yep.
The breakdown of everything. Wow.
Okay, so as they leave, they head out into the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a car pulls over. It's a man and a woman. And they say, get in, where are you going? And she goes, oh, we need to make it to, and she gives the directions or the location to where her dad's house is. And they say, yep, we won't take you all the way to Lexington, but we'll get you really close. And she says, okay, cool. So
Are they psychos?
So they take off. They're not the greatest.
Sad day. They just
So-
can't catch a break, can they?
So as they're riding, the man and wife in the front were talking about how only fat cats and this and that were chosen, and that they need to get to this next location, and they're sure to get on a plane. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to make sure they get on a plane. But they made sure to go into detail about how people who were chosen were fat cats or pieces of shit. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's kind of giving you a hint on what may come.
Yeah, so they find out they were chosen and they're not happy about it, so they get a little slice of revenge somehow.
So they
Would be
offer
my
the
guess.
they offer the boy a sandwich, and the mother says, "Oh, thank you very much. What is it?" And he goes, "Turkey." And she goes, "Okay, great," because of his insulin, he needed
Yeah.
food, you know. And cuts to John. John is searching for his family, and he looks up to see another string of pieces in the sky. So things are getting closer. With one large one trailing behind it now, like a half crescent moon almost.
So that would be the extinction level piece then, I'm assuming.
You would assume, yes.
Oh, so it's not.
John gets a call off, but bad reception. So he tries to call her, and he gets a hold of her, but she can't communicate too much, and neither can he before it's all gone. You know, yep, before it breaks up.
Yeah.
Starting to think the people they're driving want their bracelet. Yeah, that was my thought. I'm starting to think the people who are driving want their bracelets. That's what I wrote, and they do. Okay.
So they were talking all this smack about it, and then they got privy to the idea that they were picked, so they noticed the bracelets then.
Yeah.
Do you think they noticed the bracelets from the get-go?
No, they did not notice until they did notice.
Gotcha.
Um.
Probably a rear view mirror shot where he looked in the rear view mirror.
Yes,
and
he
saw
is.
it.
His eyes keep going to the rearview mirror, and I
Yeah.
think it was showed on her wrist.
Yeah.
She didn't have it covered, and John experiences something similar too. John witnesses a few more of the pieces and blah blah blah. Okay, cut to the wife with the people driving. They try and take the boy and the mother's bracelet. They they stop, and the dude pulls over, and like he starts jerking on her door hand because he's gonna get out and tear her out of the car.
Yeah.
And the wife locks all the doors at first, and he starts yanking on the door, and it won't go, and he's like, "You fucking open the door!" And she unlocks it, and he grabs the mother, reefs her out of the car like by one leg and one arm, and is carrying her like a
sack of potatoes.
Yeah, like a sack of potatoes. He throws her on the ground and he climbs on top of her and he's telling her, "Stop screaming! I told you to relax!" And he's like, I'm not going to hurt you. He said, "If anything, I'm saving your boy. Do you understand me?" And he cuts the bracelet off of her hand. And he says, "We're all going to get on that plane and we're going to make sure your boy's safe." And he doesn't even know this boy's sick. He doesn't know any of that shit. This dude's just trying to figure out how to get him and his wife on this plane. And he thinks, pretending this is his boy, pretending that that's his wife's bracelet, they're gonna get brought in no problem.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know how it works, that these bracelets have been scanned already, and he's been fucking rejected. They have no clue. None of this. They have no clue. So, so he throws her on the ground, he cuts the bracelet off, and he jumps back in the car, and they peel out. As the woman literally has a breakdown, running as fast as she can, trying to catch up to the car, and then just being devastated and sobbing.
Yeah.
Because she just, her boy just got kidnapped, taken right from her.
And they have no idea all of his special needs that they need to watch for.
Cut to John. Cut to John. So John gets, in this meantime, John gets picked up too. Mm-hmm. John's walking down an alley, and a guy says, "Hey, you should come with us." And he's telling him, "Hey, there's a place in Canada. We're going to get on a plane and we're going to go to Greenland,
Yeah.
And he says, "Why Greenland?" And he says, "You know that all the military installations are top secret. You don't know where they're at." And he said, "Well, we do." He said, "Military planes have been landing in Greenland for the last 24 hours. It's a good bet. That's where it's at."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay." So they all get inside of this, like, you know how coyotes get people across the border? It almost looks like that. It's like a work truck with a canopy thrown over the back, so you can't see inside, and it's filled with people. So he climbs in and he sits down and he meets a guy named Colin, and that's the guy who explains to him about Canada and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, what are you?" He says, "I'm an architect." And he says, "Yeah, well, I wasn't lucky." He said, "My mom's a surgeon. She got accepted." He goes, "But not me, And he says, but I'm going to get there and try to save myself anyway." And he says, "I suggest you get you and your family there too." And he goes, "Well, I got to find them first." And then it cuts to her walking and crying more, trying to, and
do they end up picking her up?
No.
Oh.
Nope.
They're still in completely
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And she gets picked up by a van full of Latino women. And I don't know where they're going, but they're heading towards Lexington, so she's going to get a ride to her dad's or whatever. So cut back to John at this point. John, and there's a shifty guy across from him that's staring at him and his bracelet.
Yeah.
John eventually covers it, but he already saw it. This guy is like, "Give me the bracelet." And he's like, "It won't work for you. It's got my fucking name on it." And he goes, "Well, give me your ID too." He goes, "Hey, I don't want any trouble." Anyway, at this point, this guy, he pulls out a crowbar and the other guy pulls out a knife, and they're both going to try to jump him. Well, him and Collins are trying to fight these guys off, and the back canopy thing blows off, and they're like, "Oh, they're fighting back there." And they end up getting into an accident. Like, they literally, skid off the side of the road, and the side breaks down, and all of them fly off the side of the truck. Well, Collins broke his neck.
Oh.
Yep. Collins broke his neck in the fall, and John, he's on the ground, and the shifty guy is on the ground, and they start racing towards the... a
weapon.
The weapon. And I thought it was a crowbar. It's a hammer. A claw hammer. And anyway, the guy with the knife is behind him. He gets the hammer, and John is trying to, swing at this guy to keep him away and swing at that guy. And he swings it, and he hits the shifty guy right in the head and fucking kills him. Sticks him right in the head. John kills Mr. Shifty.
Wow.
Okay, I'm almost done, too. That's awesome. Okay, so John kills Mr. Shifty. John and his wife both walk dazed for a bit, but not together. Okay?
Okay.
Because they crashed the truck. John didn't get back in it. He's just walking down the road.
Yeah.
Dazed for a bit as more impacts happen on Earth. More shards have impacted. No more devastation. It's hitting further away. You know what I mean? So she's been picked up by the Latino girls. I told you that.
Yep.
And meanwhile, it cuts to the kidnappers, okay? Mm-hmm. The kid and the kidnappers attempt to make access to the next plane launch location and pass through using the kid and the wife's bracelet. So they get out of their vehicle and they make it all the way to the front. And the guy tells the kid, hey, you do exactly as I say if you want to survive, and blah, 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 blah. Okay? The kid's terrified and everything.
And at this point, how old is he? He's got to
7,
be a young
8.
kid.
Yeah,
young
he's
kid.
no more. He's not a day older than 10.
Gotcha.
Okay, not a day older than 10. Sorry this is taking so long, guys. But,
No.
Okay, so, yep, for the next plane launch location, and pass through with the kid and the wife's bracelet. The kid was brave, and as they're standing there, and he's like, yeah, this is my wife, and this is my boy, and they scan her bracelet, and as they're getting ready to scan the boy's bracelet, the boy goes, they're not my mom and dad, they took me. And the MP snaps into, like, save a kid mode, and he arrests those two guys, and he picks the boy up and says, you're going to be okay, you're going to come with me, you know? And then cut to the military. The boy, an MP, has compassion and tells him that he will figure it out. Picks him up and walks away with him. As the other two are being walked away to an MP tent. Okay? The wife makes
MP.
Military police.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay? So in the meantime, the wife has been driving with these Latino people, right?
Yeah.
They get all the way to where they can't drive anymore. It's the next launch location. The launch locations aren't advertised.
Yeah.
But the more and more people go there, the more traffic's backed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so you can kind of maybe
So
see...
she's like, maybe this is where they were going, you know, for the next window.
Yeah.
So she gets out and she runs all the way up front. And she tells the guy that she's missing his son and no one's listening. And finally, she breaks down and like really freaks out. And the guy's like, just come over here, ma'am. Tell me what's going on. And she's like, my son, he was kidnapped, blah, blah, blah. He goes, well, we have juvenile tents. Follow me. And they go from tent to tent to tent to tent until they find him.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay. So she makes it. She finds him and she cries and she tells him she's sorry for her not being able to protect him and everything that's happened. At this point, John has returned back home. He's come full circle and he's back where his journey started, or at least the cul-de-sac where it started.
Yeah.
He looks up and he sees even larger pieces getting ready to come down. They're on the tip of the atmosphere, almost ready to start glowing, like to come in for a landing.
So he didn't go to her dad's house then?
Not yet. He's making his way there.
Oh, gotcha.
He had to go back the other way.
Oh.
So he's got to pass his house to get to... Yeah.
Gotcha.
So he stops and he starts guzzling some water and he checks a few things and he turns on the TV. And the TV says there's 24 hours until Clark's planet killer impacts Earth. He shuts it back off. He leaves a note, sticks it to his door, gets new keys, and drives away in his other car. He left a note in case they came back home.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't talked to them. He doesn't know what's going
contact.
on.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one thing that terrifies me is the thought that you and I could get separated in an emergency. Like.
Okay. Now, at this point, after it cuts from John driving away, it cuts back to the wife and the child, and the military is saying, "Hey, yeah, you're fucked. We're not taking you, but there's a military bus that will take you as far as Lexington." And she says, "Okay." And then you don't see them get on a bus. You don't see any of that. So John leaves a note and he drives away. Wife and kid exit a military bus. Oh, I skipped something. Okay, so John, he is on his way to her dad's house.
Yeah.
When he gets to her dad's house, He walks in, and her dad's sitting around a poker table with like beer and stuff, and his family's not there. And he's like, "Where the fuck are they?" And he's like, "We got separated, blah blah blah." And he said, "Fuck, they're angry that he lost his daughter and his grandson or whatever."
Yeah.
Cut to his wife and kid exit a military bus. Calls her dad's house. The landlines still work. That's important, I guess. The dad says, "Hey, they're right down the road. Come on." So they drive and pick them up. Okay?
Okay, so they're all together now.
Yes, they have been reunited now. They drive to meet them. Reunited once more.
Anxiety, you guys.
Reunited once more. They decide what to do next as they head back to her dad's. The kid is talking about pancakes, and the grandfather, "Yeah, we'll whoop them up." And they start, messing about. And they're still trying to decide what to do. They start breakfast and turn on the TV, and they start discussing the Clark's extinction level event again. And it's going to take place at 8 a.m. and hit somewhere between Africa and Europe. They decide, so at this point, they hem-haw around a little bit. And the wife's dad says to John, "Come out to the barn." They go out to the barn, and they start talking. And he says, "Listen, I think I can get my family to Greenland in time. We've got 14 or 18 hours." And he said, "There's a place in Canada that's taken off and blah, blah, blah. I think we can make it." And he says, okay, you're going to need to take my truck and this and that. And he says, "You're coming with us." And he says, "No, I'm not." He says, "My wife," he said, her dad said, "My wife died in this room." And he said, "When the good Lord plans to take me, I want to be right here in the same room so that we'll be together, And more stuff hits, and the barn shakes and all that stuff. And as they are discussing John's affair, she comes in the barn, and they have a little interaction. She's not even interested or doesn't even mention the affair part of it. It's like she didn't hear it, but she did.
Yeah.
Okay? So she obviously knows. And they come to the conclusion that, yeah, we're going to try to make this, and she tries to talk her dad into coming, and her dad says basically the same thing. And they end up all getting in. They all get into the truck, and they all decide to try to make it to Greenland by way of the pilots from the somewhere in Oslo, Canada. So they start off for the last shot at safety. The dad all right, I already went over all that stuff. Another impact occurs. Nothing but destruction on the horizon as they take off, because the sky's on fire or whatever.
So they're just driving through a ripped apart, messed up world right now.
Yep. As the destruction is on the horizon, they start to discuss their relationship. He apologizes for the affair, and she apologizes for her actions that may have led to the affair. Like, things weren't good for a little while, and they both neglected one another. And she basically tells him that they're both right exactly where they need to be, with the world ending or not, to be together. And they continue on until they see a highway is blocked as a radio message blares. Okay, so they come up to where they can't go any further, right?
Yep.
Because it's all filled in again or whatever. Or no, I'm sorry. No. It wasn't all. There was an accident way up ahead, like a semi or something, right?
Yep.
And they're like, well, we'll try to find a way around. And then the radio kicks on, and it gives a horrible warning. A radio message blares: "Molten debris will fall in upstate New York," where they are. And John pulls away as the molten debris starts slamming down on the road and on other cars. And whatever the last piece that struck threw shit up in the air that's starting to come down now.
Yeah.
So he drives like a maniac, and they zigzag around, and they end up parking under a bridge. Okay? For safety.
Oh, a bridge ain't gonna stop.
Correct.
Just like going under a bridge when there's a tornado, don't do it. That's
And
not a good idea.
They try to find shelter as stuff starts falling from the sky, hitting cars and people. John pulls away, trying to drive somewhere safe, and they end up jumping out of the truck and getting under a bridge. John turns and notices a car on fire and somebody in it, and they're not dead. He goes and burns the shit out of his hand trying to save them and get them out of the car. He does get them out of the car. They all jump back in the truck once all the excitement dies down, and they head off.
With the new people he rescued?
No.
Oh, he just left them. Okay.
Yep. He told them about it, but they didn't jump in their vehicle or anything. So they drive through the night. And now we're getting right close to the end. NASA comes over the radio, informing everyone that the piece that is coming is 9 miles wide. It's larger than the impact that killed all the dinosaurs.
Wow.
So this is very, very early in the morning. It still looks like nighttime, okay? They approach the airport as planes are taking off. They have to chase one down the runway. So, like, as they're driving up, a plane comes over top, and they're like, oh, we fucking missed them! And then they see another one going down the runway. So he floors it and drives straight for him. What he doesn't realize is they're still taxiing. So they turn around. Now they're going head-to-head like chicken.
Oh.
He cannot have this plane take off. If this plane takes off, him and his family are definitely dead.
Yeah.
So as the plane is taxiing out to take off, John plays chicken with the plane until it stops. The pilot reluctantly agrees, and they board the plane. But he's first screaming, how much do you weigh? And he's like, 189. He goes, fuck you. All right, 205, 210. You know, like, because he's already got a full plane. He's got a lot of people on the plane already. John plays chicken. Yep, okay. The pilot reluctantly agrees to board, to let them board. They take off as more cars pull up to the airport as they fly off. More headlights are coming in like they're left behind. The airplane flies all night and into the wee hours of the morning, and as the sun comes up, they see land. They see Greenland. Another huge impact and a gust of air pushes the plane around like crazy.
Aww.
As the engines fail. The gust of air cut the engines.
Oh, man.
The pilot does his checks. He's flipping switches and the choke, and he keeps trying to restart the engines, and finally they burst to life, but one of them sputters back out.
Aww.
And with the one engine, they don't have any lift. He goes, we're going down anyway. So they shut off the engines and they shut the fuel pump off.
And he just goes to land.
And they come in for a crash landing.
Yeah.
But as light a one as they possibly can. They cut the engines and they turn the fuel off. This would be a rough landing. They come to a landing hard and slide into a partial of a mountain. So the mountain literally stops them. It kills the pilots. They don't make it. As John and the passengers get out of the plane, John looks up and he sees a military plane coming in low and landing somewhere in the distance. He can't see, exactly what it is.
But he sees the activity.
Yes. And he tells everyone, come on, guys, and they all start heading off in that direction. They have 10 minutes before final impact. Ash starts falling, and one of the kids says, oh, it's snowing, and the dad's like, that's ash.
Yeah, that's not snow.
Yeah. And they all start hurrying. As they approach, a military convoy is approaching them. A bunch of transports. They floor it to get closer to the people, and they stop and get on, get on. They all get on, and the trucks turn and floor it heading towards the base. And it's not a base on the top. It's literally like 3 tunnels that lead underground.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, like, they drive under the ground and they keep going. Just as they pass into the bunker, a huge piece, the crescent-shaped piece, flies over top. They're in Greenland, so it's like, woo! And it's still very high in the air, but it would feel like if you were there, you could reach up and touch it.
Yeah.
It would feel that close, but it's just massive.
Yeah.
You know?
Flipping huge.
So Ash starts to fall. They floor it as they drive into the base, entering into a bunker. As they do, a huge piece flies overhead, crackling and sizzling as it cuts through the atmosphere. with a tail of debris in its wake. Huge blast doors start to close. All the people hurry deeper underground as the impact will happen soon. They hurry along as deep as they can go, and then across the whole bunker, they're told to brace for impact. Then a loud rumble, and everything fades to white. And it says 9 months later. A radio transmission can be heard, calling for other surveying stations from Greenland. Like, this is Greenland! Are you there? Like, trying to reach other installations or other places where the other militaries or other places our military tried to, keep the continuity going. As you're hearing these radio transmissions, you see the devastation all over the globe. Everywhere is destroyed. Everywhere is absolutely destroyed. And finally, you hear another station comment that we hear you, but very low. And then another, we hear you! And then more and more stations are picking up. You know, the Swedes, the Germans, they all start, you can hear that some of these people survived everywhere. Some people did.
Yeah.
Cut to John and his wife and his kid as that same blast door that you saw shutting starting to open now. A bright light shines in and they all cover their faces, their eyes readjust. And as the blast door swings open, you see the world that needs to be rebuilt. And you see all the destruction, and the doors slowly open all the way. And then you can hear some birds chirp, and you see like a few handfuls of birds fly by. And then you cut to the earth. And that's it.
Wow.
So the architect is going to have his hands full on rebuilding, and everyone is going to have their hands full. But most of the planet died except for the ones that went underground. And that is Greenland. The how do you say his name? Gerard Butler. I knew I was going to say that wrong. It is a fantastic movie. I would give it an 8 out of 10. I know that you guys just heard almost of the details. There is some I left out. But it is a fantastic movie. I would suggest going and watching it for sure. It's on, let's see, you can rent it on YouTube, or you can rent it on Amazon Prime. I believe there's more places that it's located, but we watched it on Amazon Prime.
Question for you, sir.
Or I watched it on Amazon Prime.
Is this a movie that you would like to watch again?
Yeah, if you would watch it, I'd watch it
if I
again.
want to watch it Tuesday night after work, we could make that like a little dinner date thing?
Yeah.
Let's do it, because I really want to watch this movie. I have a weird soft spot for like horror, or not horror, but like natural disaster movies and like apocalypse movies.
Yeah, I really love apocalypse movies.
And there were a couple of scenes you were describing to me, like at that first hangar, was definitely giving me some I Am Legend vibes.
Yeah, a little bit. Yep.
Definitely, just the way you were describing it to me, I was like, I could see that happening like that.
Yeah, well, at the point where the kid gets abducted, I was like, what the fuck? Where are we going? What's going to happen now? Like, it is a really, 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 really good movie. And it doesn't... I hate a movie that in the last 3 minutes lets you down. I hate that.
Like, it builds you up, and then...
Or it's like, hey, you decide what happened. No, I didn't tune in to write the story, or I'd have wrote the whole fucking thing. Come on now. Like, come on.
Definitely. Well, I'm excited to watch that on Tuesday.
And Squids, thank you very much for the book. I will be reading this next. And definitely go check out that movie, guys. It was a really, really, really good watch. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. You know, for it being an Amazon original or whatever, they did a real good job. And I can't say his name. Gerard Butler is a fantastic actor in this movie. Even the little kid did great.
I do want to say, I want to get your spin on this book when you're done. So we don't have to do a live stream or anything about it. But I would definitely like to have a conversation about how you felt about this book and the themes that you saw. Because that's the wonderful thing about reading books. I know I said this in our last video, but like...
It's true, though.
You know, you have 10 people read the same book. They're not all going to read it the same way.
No.
interpretation is definitely in the eye of the beholder. Because,
Well, that's why I asked you at the end of, like, you know, do you think this happened all in her head?
Yeah.
Or, like, was this, like, is this how this fictional world works? Is that if anybody's close to death, they go to their library or...
I definitely think there was
it was in her head.
and maybe it's like a symbolism for reaching that point. Like, maybe not everyone reaches a purgatory, but they reach a point in their life where they have to decide which way to go. And
True. Very true.
just the spin of, I definitely like to be careful what you wish for. And, it's just...
Yeah.
Hands down.
And to dig into a regret and have it not be a regret anymore.
Well, and then the one...
That is personal growth.
The one
That's
thing
awesome.
I forgot to mention to you is after she started going through some of these books, her book of regrets got lighter.
Oh, wow.
So it's like she erased the regret.
Right.
By
Yeah.
going forth and living through and processing. It's just...
She was getting rid of the emotional baggage that was holding her back or holding her down. Or holding her
This
back.
book was her cutting her strings of everything that was holding her behind and holding her down and going forth and starting fresh.
So, 5 out of 5 bookmarks.
5 out of 5 bookmarks.
8 out of 10 for the Gerard... I can't say his name.
Gerard
Butler.
Yes.
Movie, Greenland. What was that other movie I said I was doing next? I don't even remember. I'll have to walk over there to see what the title is. But all right, I'm going to let her finish up. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 2 of Piper's Picks. I've been one of your hosts, William, and I very much appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out and to listen to us go on and on about our movie and our book. We certainly have a great time doing it, and we hope you guys do too.
And I just wanted to say thank you for popping in and everybody who responded in the chat. We greatly appreciate you. Just be nice to everybody, you guys. Everybody's shouldering their own stuff, especially right now. So if I can go ahead and just throw it out there, be nicer to people, do nice deeds, and just... If you are struggling with any kind of depression or anxiety, any kind of mental illness, don't suffer alone. Seek help. Call the number, and I will go ahead and read that again for you guys. The suicide prevention hotline is 1-800-273-8255. It's not too late to go get help. Reach out to somebody, and hopefully you can experience a turnaround quicker than most.
Outside the Wire.
Outside the Wire.
Yeah, so the next movie is called Outside the Wire. It is on Netflix, and it stars Anthony Mackie, Damson Idris, and Emily Beecham. And it says, in the near future, a drone pilot sent into a war zone finds himself paired with a top-secret android officer on a mission. Sounds very sci-fi-y. Sounds awesome, though. Outside the Wire on Netflix. That will be the next movie I watch. If you would like to watch it and go over it and discuss, we would be happy to do that.
And then, again, the book that I'm going to be reading for our next go-round is When We Believed in Mermaids by Barbara O'Neill. I'm not going to read the little blurb. I'll make you guys wait in suspense. So thank you for stopping in and spending some of your time with us. We greatly appreciate it, and we hope you had fun like we did. So have a fabulous evening. Be kind to each other, and let's all just be rock stars.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye!